When people imagine a killer, they often picture a man, but some of the most disturbing murder cases begin with a woman who no one suspected could do something so heinous, except for the victim in this case.
For months before her death, Karen repeatedly stated, "If something happens to me, tell them it was my sister. She is going to kill me."
When a woman's sister disappears without a trace, questions begin to mount.
I'm very concerned that we had not heard from her. No calls, no visits, no anything.
But some of those questions are answered when detectives make a horrifying discovery.
When they open up just a portion of it, they see right away a necklace that says the name Karen. They knew they had most likely found Karen Pais.
The person prosecutors believe is responsible wasn't a stranger, intruder, or violent ex-boyfriend. It's a woman who shares the victim's DNA.
The quiet life that Karen Pais had created for herself ended in late May of 2021. And it ended at the hands of that woman right there, Debra Patton, her only sister.
We're exploring how this family relationship unraveled and turned deadly. I'm Elizabeth Millner, and welcome to this episode of Female Criminals. Carrollwood, Florida. That's where we meet this week's female criminal, Debra Pais Patton. Born in September of 1953, Debra has reportedly spent much of her life in and around Carrollwood. Her family remained there for years as well, including Debra's sister, Karen Pais. Karen is Debra's younger and only sister, but to those who knew Karen best, she's so much more.
She was loyal, generous, and deeply committed to the people she loved. She believed in standing by family no matter what.
Karen and Debra's relationship was reportedly strained over the years. However, around 2010, Karen allows Debra to move in with her into her 2-bedroom home in Carrollwood. But living together doesn't magically fix their relationship. They were still estranged while even living under the same roof. So when Karen suddenly disappears years later, it raises a troubling question. What really happened inside that home? That brings us to May 30th of 2021, when Karen's friends report her missing to the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office. According to friends, Karen was the type of person who would always answer her phone. It was strange to them when she suddenly stopped responding to their texts and calls.
So you're getting very concerned that we had not heard from her. No calls, no visits, no anything.
On Saturday after the 21st, 22nd, she was going to Debbie and Kelly because Debbie had been sick. She was going to call and let me know how Debbie looked because I hadn't seen her for a while and if she was doing okay and everything. And I never got that, which started it. And then when we kept texting her different things, and I texted her about the hair, and she didn't respond except Al Pass. The Al Pass made me very nervous.
Karen's friends say they've stopped by her home just to make sure this isn't some fluke. That's when they notice her car at the house, but no Karen. Hillsborough County deputies respond to Karen's home on May 29th, and they speak with Karen's sister, Debra Patton. Debra says she has no idea where Karen is and doesn't remember the last time she saw or spoke with her sister. But deputies notice something strange. Karen's purse, wallet, and remember her car are still at the house. Deputies return to the home the following day, and Debra tells the same story. But during the second visit to the home, deputies reportedly notice a freshly dug patch of dirt in the backyard. Investigators obtained surveillance video captured by a camera on a house across the street. It reportedly shows Karen Pais outside of her home for about an hour and a half on the morning of May 24th. Following that, she's never seen on surveillance video again. But someone else is spotted on the surveillance video, Karen's sister, Debra Patton. During the days between May 24th, when Karen is last seen on the home surveillance video across the street, and May 29th, when deputies first respond to the home, Debra is reportedly seen on surveillance video taking several large black trash bags to the trash can. She's also captured walking her dog, and on 2 occasions, she's seen leaving and returning in Karen's car. Detectives interview Debra on May 30th of 2021. She tells them that although she and her sister lived together for about 10 years, they don't really talk or communicate with each other. She does reveal she recently had a personal issue with Karen, but detectives say she doesn't want to disclose what happened. Investigators obtain a search warrant for Karen's home. Their attention returns to that freshly dug patch of dirt, so they begin digging. 2 feet down, that's when they find something wrapped in black trash bags and cloth material bound with bungee cords and duct tape. There's a particular smell that reportedly lingers. It confirms their worst suspicions. Wrapped in trash bags is a body. According to the medical examiner's office, around the neck is a gold necklace that reads Karen. Officials would later confirm it is the body of Karen Pais. Remember, the only other person captured on surveillance video coming in and out of the house after May 24th is Karen's sister, Debra Patton. Investigators arrest Debra. Initially, it's just on the charge of abusing a dead human body, which is a second-degree felony. It stays that way until the medical examiner conducts Karen's autopsy. The Hillsborough County Chief Medical Examiner confirms Karen died from a gunshot wound to the chest, and the office rules Karen's death a homicide. Debra Patton now faces an additional charge of second-degree murder with a firearm. What's interesting, the arrest report makes no mention of a motive. What could lead Debra Patton to allegedly kill her sister and bury her body in her backyard? Debra Patton is transported to the Hillsborough County Jail, and her bail is set at more than $250,000. But the news of Debra's arrest doesn't shock anyone in Karen Pais's inner circle. According to Karen's friends, Karen's relationship with Debra was beyond just estrangement. They say prior to her death, Karen was uttering what now seems like ominous warnings. She told her friends, "If you find me dead, it was Debra." That's what Karen's longtime friend Kathy Wincoop revealed to the Tampa Bay Times in 2021. According to their report, Karen's friends urged her to kick Debra out, but Karen insisted she couldn't do that because Debra is family. So despite their friction, they continue living together. But Debra's case wouldn't go in front of a jury for years. Between 2022 and 2024, she's found incompetent to stand trial and remains in a state mental hospital for treatment. But by February of 2025, a judge rules Debra is competent to stand trial, and her jury trial is on the calendars for early 2026. On January 13, 2026, opening statements begin. Here's Hillsborough County Assistant State Attorney John Terry.
Karen Pais led a simple life in a quiet neighborhood in the Carrollwood community. She was a retired engineer from Verizon. She had a select group of good friends, and she enjoyed gardening. She enjoyed working in her yard. She enjoyed washing her car. Neighbors will say she was often seen outside, actually very regularly. The place she lived, just to give you a general idea, was right where that red pin drop is. That was her home. It's a 2-bedroom home. She lived there. It was her home. She purchased it. She lived there originally with her parents until both her parents passed. And then ultimately, she lived there with her sister, Debra Patton. Debra Patton and Karen Pais were not getting along. They were not communicating. The friends will say that for a while, Debra would maybe sometimes come out while they were there, but then wouldn't even come out with them when they were there. And when she did, she wouldn't even acknowledge them. They could sense and see and feel the tension between these two sisters who were living together at this residence. The quiet life that Karen Pais had created for herself ended in late May of 2021. And it ended at the hands of that woman right there, Debra Patton, her only sister. They go to the backyard. And that's where Debbie sees this. She knew that Karen took very good care of her yard. She knew that Karen had just got a lemon tree, a seedling. And when she asked Debra about it, Debra says that's from the tree, this is the lemon tree, which was just a seedling. This is an 8-foot long hole. So Debbie confronts her. She asks her, "Is Karen in that hole? Is Karen in that hole?" And you will hear that Debra Patton just basically ignores her. Says, "No, I don't know what you're talking about." So when detectives finally obtain the search warrant, what's the first thing they do? They go to that patch of dirt. And they begin to dig. and you're going to hear about how they did this. Homicide detectives, crime scene investigators, slowly but surely, so as not to disturb anything, dug and dug and dug. And about 2 feet down, you will hear they felt something. More importantly, they smelled something. They recognized the smell of decomposition. And they knew they had some sort of a body down there.
During their openings, the defense argues Debra was just an easy target. They claim she's innocent.
Proof. Proof. Beyond and to the exclusion of every single reasonable doubt. That is the burden that the prosecutors brought onto themselves when they filed the charge of second-degree murder against Debra Patton. To prove their allegations with facts, with evidence. And Debra Patton is arrested, charged, and sits here before you, not because they find any proof that she kills Karen Pais, not because they find any evidence that she kills Ms. Pais. She's charged with second-degree murder, not because they have any evidence of what happened when Karen Pais died, but she sits here because they simply just didn't know what else to do at that point in time. And while that may have been enough for them to arrest her in their point of view at that time, that is not enough for you. Ms. Patton is innocent as she remains here today. You haven't heard any evidence, you haven't seen any evidence, you haven't heard from any witnesses. She is innocent. That will not change at any point during this trial. And I'm going to ask you to return the verdict of not guilty.
The first witnesses the jury hears from are Karen's close friends, like Pam Nelson.
And when you were over, would Debra get involved with you all and hang out with you all?
In the beginning, yes.
In the beginning? Okay. Did there come a time where you noticed that there was something going on between the two of them as far as their relationship?
Yes.
What is it? Did you notice that they were starting to become more distant with each other?
Well, when we go over, Karen had a screened-in porch that she put windows in, and that's where we would sit because most of us smoked at the time, cigarettes. And Debra would come out, we'd play games, and she would come out at first, and she always drank wine, and she would sit with us and play games, and then it got where she would come out and talk to us, but she didn't stop to play games. And then later on, it got that she would just walk through. She was taking Buddy, her dog, to the backyard to go to the bathroom. And she'd walk through and not talk to us at all. And then sometimes we'd go over and she wouldn't even come out of the bedroom.
During Pam's testimony, she reveals she knew something was wrong by some of the text messages she was getting from Karen. They didn't sound like they were actually sent by Karen.
Did Karen like to get her hair done?
Yeah, she was complaining it was too long, and when COVID started, we had a hairdresser that would come to our house and cut our hair for us. So I told her I would text Linda and find out and get an appointment. And so I did that.
And were you able to get an appointment?
Yeah, I got this appointment and I texted her the next day that I got this appointment, is that okay with you? And on Thursday, I got a text back that said, I'll pass.
Did that sound like something
No.
Karen would say to you?
Karen never gave it a short answer. She always had a reason why she wasn't going to come over, or, she always gave a big explanation.
and getting her haircut was something she liked to do, and she was wanting to do it.
Oh yeah, she was fussy about her hair.
All right. So did that cause you concern?
Yep. That was Thursday, and I texted Kelly because we hadn't heard from her. She had been going to Kelly and Debbie's the day on Saturday after the 21st. 22nd, she was going to Debbie and Kelly's because Debbie had been sick. She was going to call and let me know how Debbie looked because I hadn't seen her for a while, and if she was doing okay and everything. And I never got that, which started it. And then when we kept texting her different things, and I texted her about the hair, and she didn't respond except I'll pass. And the I'll pass made me very nervous.
The same day, the jury also hears from Karen's friend Debra Patton. According to her testimony, Karen was a very meticulous gardener. everything was always in order. So when she saw a huge patch of disturbed dirt, she believed there was no way Karen could have done this.
And so when you saw this, did you say anything to Debra?
Yes, I did.
What did you say?
I said what I thought, and that is, Karen's in there, isn't she?
And what did Debra say to you?
She didn't verbally respond. She pursed her lips and went back and forth her head, just slightly.
Okay.
She just pursed her lips and went like that.
All right, what did you do at that point?
Well, prior to that, I had asked her, where is Karen? And she didn't really answer. She might have said something so low under her breath, I don't know, but she was just saying, I don't know is what I think she said.
Okay. So you had asked her where Karen was, and
Yes.
her response was she didn't know.
Yes, that's correct.
And then when you saw that patch of dirt, you confronted her and basically said that Karen was in there.
I said, Karen's in there, isn't she?
Okay. And she just didn't really respond to you.
No, she did not.
After hearing from Karen's friends, the prosecution calls a number of witnesses from the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office who investigated the case. Their testimony helps connect the pieces. This is Deputy Daniel Zintak with the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office.
What did you see when you went into the backyard?
The backyard was immaculate except for a dirt in the middle of the yard.
And this is states 19B. Is that dirt pile you're referencing?
Yes.
Was there any other conversations had with Miss Patton?
Yes, I actually asked her about the dirt pile itself.
Did she give you any account as to why the dirt pile was there?
Yes, she said that she herself planted a tree there, and then her sister didn't want it there because she wanted grass from fence line to fence line, and dug it up.
According to the medical examiner, Karen sustained a gunshot wound to the right side of her chest, but there was no evidence suggesting the gun was fired at a close range.
This wound enters the muscles in the right side of the chest. It then goes between the ribs and enters it perforates the lung, and then it enters the heart sac where the heart is, and it perforates the heart and the pulmonary artery, and then it keeps going further backward towards the spine and perforates the spine, and that would be at like T8, T9 thoracic spine, and then it perforates the spinal cord at that level, the spine itself, and then exits through the back.
All right. So this was a devastating injury then?
Yes.
It seems like it hit a lot of the organs.
It hit the major organ. It hit major organs. It collapsed the right lung and perforated the heart. So the heart was injured and not able to pump properly anymore.
Was this an immediately fatal wound?
It's usually seconds to minutes with a wound like this. There was no evidence of close contact, so usually if the muzzle is touching the skin, there's going to be a muzzle imprint, or there may be some soot, or there may be some gunpowder deposition around the wound. I wasn't able to make out any gunpowder on the shirt or the skin, and there was no stippling, which would be pieces of gunpowder that impact the skin and cause little tiny abrasions. I didn't see that either. So it was not a contact wound.
Following this testimony, the prosecution rests their case. Now the defense has the chance to make their case to the jury. The judge asked Debra Patton if she will testify. The only answer the judge probably thought he'd hear is yes or no, but Debra Patton has a different answer.
So have you had an opportunity to speak to your counselors and get advice from them on what your decision is?
Yes.
And what is that decision?
My decision at this time is not to testify.
Okay.
Because I only have hearsay to present. I only have theories, conjecture of other motives from other individuals that may have done this crime, but was not properly investigated initially.
Well, we don't need to get into all that, so it's just yes or no. I don't need to know all that. That's for another time and another place. But let me ask, I need another question to ask you. Has anybody forced you or threatened you in any way to make that decision?
No one has forced me to make this current decision.
Okay.
All I'm saying is that given the opportunity to have handled this particular case initially properly, there could have been a lot of evidence removed from it.
I understand that. Ma'am, if you remember, I was the judge who started this case back in the day, before I became a trial division judge. So I'm familiar with all the issues that you brought up, and I understand that. But those are for another place and another time. I appreciate you taking the time, though, to talk to me and answer those questions.
In the end, the defense doesn't put on a case at all.
Defense, you may begin your case. Thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, both the state and the defense have now rested their cases. The attorneys will now present their final arguments.
To me, what's really interesting about this case is the prosecution doesn't really reveal a motive as to why Debra killed her sister Karen, but they believe there's enough evidence to call her the one and only suspect. Here's Hillsborough County Assistant State Attorney Kelsey Day.
On May 20th of 2021, that's the last day that Pam and Jan, Karen's friends, saw her alive at their house. Then the next day, on May 21st, 2021, that's the last time her friend Debbie Wishon saw her alive. They began to grow concerned when they weren't hearing from Karen. And then on May 24th, we know that that is the last time through that surveillance footage that Karen Pais is ever seen alive. She goes back into her home and she never comes out again. I want you all to notice what Karen is wearing. You can see her standing in her garage with her purple shirt on. She goes and takes care of her lawn. She's wearing that purple shirt and her light colored shorts. This is the exact same articles of clothing that will later be collected from her body. In that same video, you see Karen bending down, taking care of her lawn. You heard that she was meticulous about her lawn. This was very like her to do. She worked outside all the time. Her neighbors saw her. And in this video, you even see her, as she's bending down, taking care of her lawn, make sure to wave as her neighbor's car rolls by. When Karen goes back into her garage and shuts the door around 12 o'clock that afternoon, she never comes back out. And that's the last time anybody ever sees her outside her home. In talking to Debra, they explained that her demeanor was very calm. She wasn't concerned about where Karen was. She didn't want to file a missing persons report. And she wasn't concerned. Debra knew exactly where Karen was at that point because she's the one that killed her and buried her in that hole. To prove murder in the second degree, the state of Florida has to prove that, one, Karen Pais is dead. We know that. Found her body. It's stipulated to. Both parties agree that that body was that of Karen Pais. Number two, the death was caused by the criminal act of Debra Patton. Karen Pais was shot in the chest. Karen Pais was shot in the chest while she was at her house. The only other person that entered and exited that house was Debra Patton. Debra Patton shot Karen Pais in the chest. And then number three, there was an unlawful killing of Karen Pais by an act imminently dangerous to another and demonstrating a depraved mind without regard for human life. By shooting Karen in the chest, Debra did not care if Karen lived or died. She tried to get rid of all the evidence. She had plenty of days to. She got rid of her firearm, got rid of Karen's cell phone that was never found, certainly cleaned up the inside of the house, and she thought she had gotten rid of Karen enough for nobody to find. But what she wasn't counting on was how loved Karen was by her friends and the concern that it would create when Karen didn't reach out to them.
Although the defense chose not to present its own case, they still had one final opportunity to persuade the jury that their client is innocent. Here's defense attorney Maria Dunker.
You, the jury, get to determine what has been proven what has been speculation, and what has been made up. When you go back into that deliberation room, there are really two questions that you'll have to answer. One, did Debra Patton shoot and kill her sister, Karen Pais? And two, what were the circumstances of that shooting? And by that, I mean, was this second-degree murder? Specifically, was there ill will, hatred, spite, and evil intent? Or was it something else? Did something else happen? Those are the questions that you're going to have to answer. They also gave us information by telling us that Karen and Debra didn't get along. Debra Patton didn't get along. But my question to you members of the jury, what does that mean? They didn't get along. Did they just not like one another? Was this a typical roommate rift? Was this a family drama rift? What exactly was happening? We don't have any of that information. What we have is just simply they don't get along. The prosecution wants to act like that in and of itself gives someone reason to commit second-degree murder. And they don't have to prove motive. I'm not insinuating that they do. But they're trying to put that forward to you as a reason as to why Debra Patton would be the only one that would want to kill her sister. Simply not liking someone, simply not getting along, is a far cry from proof beyond a reasonable doubt that somebody committed second-degree murder.
But, Your Honor, what I would like to share is something that has been eating at me since Karen was murdered. As testimony, it is only inadmissible hearsay. But it is all I can hear Karen say in my head, and it's gut-wrenching. For months before her death, Karen repeatedly stated, if something happens to me, tell them it was my sister. She is going to kill me. Over and over we heard such statements. I found it difficult to believe that such a thing could happen. We made suggestions. We said, move her out, find her another place, even if you have to pay for it. Move yourself out, get out. Make sure her gun is not loaded. None of that happened. What else could we have done as friends to save our friend's life? So in my mind, as I still hear those chilling words, Debra Patton is guilty not of second but of first-degree murder, as she let her victim know she planned to kill her.
Any hope of parole. I want her to die in prison. I want her to be miserable. She's made the rest of us miserable. She deserves no mercy. If she had a chance, she would probably fulfill other threats that she's made to other family members. So I do respectfully ask that you give her life in prison. I want her to die in prison, Your Honor. Despite Debra Patton's conviction, she has one final message for the court.
Your Honor, thank you. I do stand here blameless for this. I do intend to appeal the verdict. I do also forgive everything that I just heard in here that was a lie. Heavenly Father, I know that you are in sovereign control over this situation. And even though I understand that the verdict is in and that you are going to pronounce sentence, I am going to continue to fight this. That's all I have to say.
But the judge had the final word.
Well, I remember this evidence. I remember this case when it first came in. The cold, calculated way that you perpetrated this crime. You say you stand there blameless?
I do.
Nobody else agrees with you. And I certainly don't. The jury certainly don't. And you'll be judged someday. If you're a God-fearing person, then you should fear God at this time. Because your crime is irreprehensible. The evil that walks among us is envisioned by what you did. When I watched the video and saw you just calmly take the shovel and walk back into the house to bury your sister's body, it's unfathomable. This is not your time to speak, it's your time to listen. And I think you may think it's a joke. Well, enjoy yourself for the rest of your life, because I'm going to mandate you to go to prison for the rest of your life. 25 years that hasn't been mandatory. Credit for all time credit is due. then you'll spend the rest of your life in prison. Adjudicated guilty if I haven't already done so. That's all I gotta say.
While Debra found her sentence comical, Karen's friends had a different feeling: relief, knowing justice has finally been served. Debra Patton is currently serving her life sentence in the Homestead Correctional Institution in Homestead, Florida. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode. I'm Elizabeth Millner, and we'll see you back here next week with another female criminal.